Welcome to episode 18 of the Service Course Report. We're all back together. It's been a little while.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Thanks for all the comments that we've been getting. Keep those coming along. You can watch us on YouTube and Spotify, or you can listen audio only on Apple Podcasts. We're also on all the other platforms you might find out there. It's feeding out. Please share it with your friends. And so today we're the three of us back together. What's been going on? Tell me about some rides you've been on.
Mm. Well, for me, since we're all back together, but I did a huge ride. It was coming up on 2 weeks ago, so it was the Sunday before last. I thought it was a good idea to go out and pre-ride the Huffmaster Hopper course, so the second in the 5 race series, and it's a 90 to 93 mile loop out of Maxwell, California, which is right on the I-5, kind of southwest of Chico, so north of Sacramento. And in that 92 miles, I'm going to say it's only about 5,000 feet of climbing, which is not that much compared to where I live. So I was like, yeah, I can go ride with these guys. It'll suck, but I'll be able to get myself through. So it turned out it was myself with Mig Crawford, who started the Hopper series, and then two of his buddies, Javier, who's from Spain, and Gary from the Bay Area. And we got out, started rolling a little after 10 o'clock. And I would say within 15 or 20 minutes of starting, I knew I was in trouble. And I knew that because we were on a dead flat road going into a headwind. And I was having a hard time riding shoulder to shoulder because these dudes, like, their talking pace was redlining me. And I was like, man. I go, oh, well, I'll ease into it. I'll, blah, blah, blah. Well, finally it was like, the half wheeling was happening. I mean, we've all been in that scenario where you're in a half wheel situation. Sometimes, I mean, it's mostly when someone else is half wheeling you, because we always learn not to half wheel.
Right.
Which, for people who don't know what half wheeling is, that's when you're riding in a formation, generally on the road, and the person next to you is about a half wheel in front of you. Like, they're trying to push the pace by riding a little faster with you, except every time you try to keep up, they kind of go a little harder.
But
I
if
don't
you
know
slow down, they slow down. But if you
yeah.
speed up, they speed up. They're like those people that tailgate you on the freeway, kind of.
Yeah, so you're always a half wheel behind. And it wasn't so much like that because I felt like I couldn't speed up. But I got going with these guys, and it was like, we had, I think in the first hour and a half, I don't know, we had ridden almost 30 miles and climbed to maybe 400 feet, and I was done. And I was just like,
That's
oh,
a bad
man.
sign.
So we stopped at the one spot we stopped at the Thunderhill Raceway is on the track, so we are on the route. So we stopped to get some water, and I was like, those guys were stopping. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep rolling. You guys just get water. And they're like, no, you got to come get water. So we go and then do that. I swear it just never got better. And I was pulling out every trick in my head, pulling tricks on myself, Jedi mind tricks, and it was like, I couldn't get going, and I must have quit 100 times on that ride. And every time it got bad, they'd ease up or wait for me. And I mean, I was fortunate that part of this recon ride was to check out what the conditions were like and get photos. And it was a spectacularly beautiful day, so there was a lot of slowing down to get content to doing that. But I guess the biggest revelation, and I finally made it. And the easiest part was the climbs, because you can only go your own pace on the climbs, but riding on the flats. But what was cool is I didn't know I had that much ability to suffer on the bike left in me. Like, I thought that those days were long gone, and without those guys, I mean, I wouldn't have made it, because they kept easing up and kept waiting, and then I could pull when I could pull. But it took me back to what I recall as the first 100-mile training ride I ever went on. So I'd ridden the centuries and stuff before, but there were all these kind of mentors. We didn't realize it. We were guys that raced bikes in Santa Barbara when we grew up. A guy named Bob Meeker, who raced on the Santa Barbara Bike Club, the Centurion Nutritech team. And I remember going down around Santa Paula, my first 100-mile training ride with Bob Meeker. I must have been 16 years old. And it was just the two of us. And, I was like, oh, yeah, I can go do this. Well, I was 16. I had never done a 100-mile training ride before. And I started dying, and I realized now, like, he thought he was responsible for some 16-year-old kid who wasn't his kid, right? He took me out
Right.
on a ride. I mean,
Yeah.
Bob, he was probably, I'm guessing, in his late 20s at that point.
Yeah, I would
I
think.
don't know. Quite a phenomenal racer on his own, and he did what those guys did, and he nursed me back. He said the right things, because I didn't, back then I didn't know all the tricks you could play on yourself and the ways to conserve, because I was just learning. But it was just cool to go back to that place, and that was this memory that got brought back to me. That was like 45 years ago, and I made it through, and it took about a week, and then
Recovery.
and then I recovered. Yeah. I think say the worst part was I had to teach an indoor class the next day, that next night. Like by the time we got done, I think I had about 12 hours of recovery before I had to get on and teach a bike or on an indoor class, a power class. And I didn't turn my power down quite enough. And that was pretty miserable. And it was a balance between how bad my legs hurt and how bad my ass hurt from sitting on the saddle for, 6.5 hours the other day. But yeah, that's the my most recent ride memory in my head. Not necessarily my most recent ride.
So you
Well,
did
I'll
when you
tell
had
you,
to, I was going to say when you had to teach the next morning, did you then go in and program like a warm up and then like 40 minutes of minute on, minute off, hard, intense efforts or something?
Something like that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Ed?
And
well, I was always trying to think of, or I was thinking of, what are the best tricks. Sometimes I ask people a question to slow them down,
Oh,
because I
right.
know as soon as they have to start talking, they're going to slow down a little bit. Or I really think about my position, like if I'm in the pace line, I go, oh, I got to sit just ever so slightly to the right, or whatever.
Yeah.
What are your little tricks, Cass? What trick you got for us?
well, the talking to those guys didn't work because they were talking the whole time, and I was out of wind. So I was like, well, that
That
didn't
won't
work.
work.
And I did notice definitely as I suffered, I'm like, okay, tune in. And I was getting contorted on the bike. I could tell I was starting to, because I was so uncomfortable, my hips were starting to twist like they generally do. And the left hip kind of rolls off the to the left side of the saddle, and then I twist right side forward. And so I can look back. All you do is you look down and look at your legs on the seat post. I'm like, okay, get that square, breathing, and and pedaling circles, and it's just something else to focus on other than the pain in your head. Then these old training rides that I got through, and ultimately it's kind of like that old thing, which I think we all experience. Even if you go out riding and you feel terrible the whole time you ride, you feel better for it when you're done. I knew that would come. It just took about a week for it to happen, but I was very glad that I did it. So that was one of them, knowing that it was gonna, like hopefully push me through a little level. And it
Right.
was also eye-opening in that, I guess I mostly ride in my comfort zone, which makes me really good at riding in my comfort zone. And when I had to be in the comfort zone of someone else, it was super challenging. I'm glad I didn't have like metrics. I didn't have, power meter or any. I mean,
Right.
what are you gonna do? It's like these riders, you know. Well, the
Just
attack
look
went
at
down
it
and I
and
couldn't hold the watts. It's like, well, don't look at the
right.
watts. When the attack goes down, you just got to get on the wheel and go. So that was kind of that mentality that I used.
Yeah.
What's up with your hat? It's catching my eye.
Well, this
Yeah,
was
that's
a
a
little
classic
ode
right
to,
there.
we talked about who we are and where we come from. And I know on one of our early episodes, Darren and I told the story of going over to Japan and riding the Super Challenge with Greg LeMond, and doing that time trial on the road bikes and the mountain bikes and that. And I found the hat. So this is
Yeah.
the hat from '93, the Super Challenge, which was modeled after ski racing, where Greg was supposed to set this time. And I actually took all the words on this hat and plugged them into the good old internets, and nothing came up about this event. So
Oh,
maybe,
really?
yeah, I couldn't see, Super Challenge with Greg LeMond, and then this
Huh.
four, and I can't pronounce the name of that city there, but
Yeah.
it's a small town in the Myogu Prefecture in Japan. So I don't know if we were raising money for the town, if they had just had.
I think there
Do you
was some
remember
type
this?
of. Well, remember we went over to we went and spoke at like a school, or maybe Greg spoke and we got to stand next to him.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but they had all the athletes up, right? They had like school kids there. I feel like there was maybe some type of charity component to it, or raising for something or bringing awareness to something. I don't remember though. We'd have to try and search out JP.
Search it out. Yeah. Anyway, so I thought I keep talking about bringing stuff in that we talk about. So I found this one. I'm like, all right,
Nice.
I'm plopping the hat on. Yeah, I had to
Great
use
one.
the air compressor to get all the dust off of it. It's all good.
Super challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, Ed, what are some of your tricks you use if you're out there having a day like that where you're just suffer meistering?
I think I started riding, let's say 5 or 6 years ago again, and I think I've done a lot of suffering. I start to wonder if maybe I can't quite suffer as much as I did during maybe 2 or 3 of those years.
Hmm.
Like I think I'm kind of over it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I definitely ask questions. I work on my position in the draft.
Right.
I strategize on where we're going to stop for more food because nowadays I eat a lot more when I'm riding. Um, so last Saturday I went out and rode with two gentlemen, and I rode about 46 miles on my mountain bike, which is pretty long for a mountain bike.
Yeah. That's a long.
They were on their gravel bikes, and I said, if you guys are going to keep getting me to go farther and farther with you, we're stopping. so,
Yeah.
so we went to Sprouts, and I get paranoid about running out of calories. So calories, get other people to talk, my position. I play a lot of games.
Yeah.
I'm drawing blanks, but I definitely do a lot of things. Sometimes I might try and goat people into doing crazy stuff, like get them to like go extra hard,
Oh, right.
so I can get them to tire out. Because most of my riding time in the last couple of years, I think ended up riding with people who are stronger than me. So anyway, how about you?
I think like both of you, probably my main trick, if I'm just like on one of those rides where, I don't do as much group riding anymore, but we'll go like up and over, like climb up Gibraltar and drop down the backside, a 2 climb day, and then got to climb back up. And I had one of those suffer days, and I think I focus on my position. I focus on dropping my heels, whatever are all my tricks, engaging my shoulders, sitting relaxed, knowing if there's any, I have all little creeps from one shoulder injury. This guy will sometimes creep up, try and look at my shadow and make sure that that's pulled down, making sure I'm sitting equally on the bike, making sure I'm just getting, like a good pedal stroke. So that's mostly what I do. I find that it just brings you right in the moment. So all you're thinking about is like, is this right? And then, like right there, you're not thinking about, oh my God, I got 30 minutes. Is this the net, looking up ahead. So probably that's the main one, trying to do that. Of course, like if you're with people, mine I always do is if it's like they're not looking back, is we'll fade over the top of the hill and then, just drop it in the big gear and catch back up to them. Do one of those easier, for the speed gain, because most people go hard up over and then kind of cruise. So probably those are my two main tricks. Mind playing tricks on me. Ghetto boys. Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
you
wait.
do
Oh,
any
yeah.
interesting rides recently?
Yeah, I got out last weekend. I did 2 rides, both days back to back out on the bluffs. Been riding my gravel bike a bunch, and a sneaker during the week actually, and then 2 out there. And it's just been so much fun. I've been ripping laps. I've been just comparing, doing a little. We got done with all the semi-slick testing for Pan-Racer, but I had some other stuff that I was comparing, and so it was just fun to get out there. And the weather's been amazing. It's a little overgrown though, so you're definitely doing some bush bashing as you drop through, a few of the areas. But that's mostly what I've been on, is on my gravel bike. So I had a couple really fun days last week where you're just like, have the smile, ripping corners and stuff like that. Yeah. What about you? Oh, you did. You did your big one. Yeah, that's right.
I was going to say, yeah, it's interesting, Des, that you use the shadow tactic of
Oh,
evaluating
yeah.
how you're sitting on the bike by looking at your shadow, which, yeah, I've done that as well. And it's a tough one. I mean, generally, if the sun is directly behind you, you can get a square shadow, but that's about the only
Right.
point, right? So it's like
Yeah,
you can see if
exactly.
you're shoulder high or knee out if the sun is directly behind. So
Yeah, if you're doing something. You know, when we used to do, like, say, especially Casitas loop, I remember doing it because I was be tired, but I would still do it if we rode 192 loop to the south. And, you know, you'd be coming back on, you know, go down through Carp and then be coming back on 192. And the section past, like, you know, Kate School and the Lions Club all the way down to like the high school. And in general, we were talking about looking at your shadow. That was one of the ways on a road bike I always tried to work on my smoothness, was to look at my shadow and try and not see my torso moving, just try and only have my legs moving, and then couple that up with riding on the white line. So it was like those two things, trying not to deviate at all, and then trying to just have your body just be super still. So you were just cranking down. And that was always like that one long stretch, because it was pretty great. And there's a, you know, pretty long part of that is just dead straight. So you're just like on the line, you know, going all the way down there. So that was another shadow technique, if we want to call it.
yeah.
How I used to use it. Yeah. And do that. That was a good one.
Yeah. Before everyone had a high definition camera in their pocket, disguised as a telephone. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. Sounds like good riding on all accounts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't change it. Wouldn't change it. Yeah.
So the racing, you know, kind of kicked off. We've got a lot more racing to watch. We're still in the preseason. It's funny how in the old days, you know, we would read Winning Magazine or Velo News a month later, and, you know, we'd see, you know, a little bit about these early season races, but they sure are important for these teams looking for World Tour points now, you know, like Challenge Mallorca, the racing this weekend, the racing in the Middle East. You know, it's important to some of these teams. So the racing gets a little more attention than it used to.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, and the fact that you used to, just like you said, I mean, we used to read Winning or whatever. Winning came out 2 months, I think, after the racing. Now you're watching it live on your phone while you're cooking pancakes. So you can, you know, there's definitely a lot more viewing options, which is nice.
And it's interesting too. Ed, you just talked about the preseason. I don't know if there is a preseason anymore. I mean, maybe if you are specifically a Grand Tour rider focusing, you know, on one of those three events, but it seems like nobody. I mean, there might be some riders trying to ease into things, but I mean, you look at you know, they're going for it, like from the get go. I mean, yes, you might have, everyone talks about Pogacar or Vingegaard, but there's plenty of other riders out there. You know, Remco's been ripping it up for his new team, but I don't. You know, everyone takes segments, but I'm sure that there are some riders on these teams that their whole directive from the team is you need to be at 100% at the first races in January, right? You're going to take a break during the summer. So there's no easing into it. I mean, we used to talk about like training into it, maybe for a certain individual there is, but I don't believe that there is really a preseason anymore.
Yeah, I think the polarized training has helped eliminate that, because it doesn't, as we had talked about in previous episodes, it doesn't take as long. It seems like they don't have that same traditional buildup of having to do all these long stage races and stuff. They just show up ready to go.
Well, it's cool to see Remco have a nice start to his spring. You know, he's not getting in an accident or recovering from something. He's building in, and people are like, oh, he's peaking too early. I go, I don't think so. I think he needs to try something different, because he's the third best rider in the world, you know?
Right.
So he's got to try something different. And so, yeah. And so he's trying something different, and that is having a really great early spring, if you can call it that, or late winter, or whatever season you want to categorize it. And I think it's going to be good for him. And I think it's good for the winning mentality of his new team. You know, I think they've risen to another level with him. So it's fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty cool to see. And it seems like they're like, hey, we're taking UAE head on. And I was just thinking too, you know, we think about, and I know we've talked about it, think about what it's like for Remco now to go, man, I got a whole team that's designed to help me win the tour. You know, I mean, obviously other athletes, you know, they're racing Grand Tours, but like, that's why they brought him in. And so think about him finally having all that focus behind him, how good he must feel. But then also think about all the team that they have somebody on there now that they're like, okay, you know, if it was third last year, you know, won double Olympics. So it probably even gives you a little bit more motivation to go in and ring it out because, you know, you can see like just how hard the UAE team works for Tade, because you're like, dude, we got to deliver this guy because he really, you know, is like, has the best chance of winning or right up there. So I think it will just keep, you know, keep jumping up both sides, raising Remco the team. So I'm excited too.
Yeah, that's a good point. He has never had a team behind him his entire career, specifically for him, right?
Right.
Soudal, Quick Step, they had dual motivation, right? The classics and then kind of supporting him for these grand tours. There is a dude named Primoz Roglic, though, that's still on that team that no one's talking about. So it'll be interesting to see how this motivates him. You know,
yeah.
Primoz has won the Vuelta 4 times now, 4 or 5, and he's won the Giro. So he's not a slouch.
Right. No.
I mean, yes, he's definitely, you know, further on in his career than those other guys, but so it'll you know, be interesting how that happens. You know,
and
plus
what's
Jai
the skinny...
Hindley's on there. He's won the Giro too.
Yeah. And Jonas is racing the Giro, right? Is that still a go in spite of whatever issues Visma's been having, or isn't that the program?
Correct.
Yeah.
Latest we've read.
Yeah. That'll be good to see.
Yeah. Visma's having some change. Something's going on in their background. You know, they changed their coach for a bunch of these guys.
Yeah.
So they got a new coach, and you know they've had a little bit of a rough start. If you know, with the retirement of Yates and
right.
Jonas was supposed to go to UAE. He's not because he got sick. You know, they've been on a little bit of a negative spiral.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll turn it around. I'm not too worried about them. But, you know, we've seen the fall of these mega teams. We saw the fall of Sky as they evolved into Ineos, and maybe they're having a little bit of losing their luster, and UAE's got it all, but we'll see.
Yeah.
maybe not. I mean, but you can flip that and say it sounds as though the recovery of Wout van Aert is going much better than everyone had predicted. So, who knows?
You guys... Oh, sorry. Yeah. Did you guys see that snowy cross race, the one that Wout fractured his ankle in?
Yes.
It was him, Van der Poel. That was just like, you know, I mean, obviously like snow on pavement isn't great. At some point it could just be ice and you would slide out. But just the visual when they were coming across the one straightaway and there was like water on one side and it was white, and that snow is just like big fat flakes coming across in sheets and they're just going for it. I thought it was just, from the visual of it, looked pretty cool.
Well, when you mix snow and sand together too, it like is quite the visual as well.
Yeah.
Those lines.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. They are just cross nuts over in Europe. It's pretty incredible. I mean, watching, I don't know if you guys, we were talking about, you know, getting to watch the Worlds, but I didn't get to watch the whole day. I saw the elite men, but just the crowd, like looking at that whole setup and the layout and whatever the name of that sport park was they were at, that just makes me want to get on a plane and go over to Cross Worlds just to see that. I mean, obviously Van der Poel in Holland is going to give you some extra sauce. You know, I'm sure more people are coming out, and like we talked about how strong the Dutch women were, but even still, like just all those people out there, being an event like that is just amazing. A world championship event. You know, it's funny, some of the motocrossers who, you know, pro motocross, they have a motocross of nations. And it's kind of like a Worlds that they have every year. And it's three rider teams, and they go over. And every guy, and Ivan, who I trained, he did it twice when I was his trainer, but every single one of them, they came back and they said the crowd, they're like, dude, I don't know what it was, like supercross crowds or gnarly motocross, but the crowds at the Nations and the Europeans, they said they're just nuts, you know. And it reminds me of when I watch Leger now, which is like one of the biggest downhills, and just how the crowds are crazy. And that, especially for a world championship, there's, you know, something about it, and the countries just get behind it. And they all said it's just a different experience, how insane the crowd is. That's what that reminded me of, looking at that Cross Worlds. It just looked like so much fun. Like you just want to be out there cheering them on, eating your frites met, you know, right on the side of the course.
Yeah, I often wonder what it is that I want to see. Do I want to go to the Tour? Do I want to witness, you know, this or that? And I think Flanders would be a good compromise. It'd be a little warmer than Cross Worlds,
Right.
And I and I could get a little of that flavor. I think I'm going to go with Flanders as my pick.
You know, they have that. There's a couple different people who do tours like that. And actually, my one client, Dan, he's heading over with his son to do the tour where you do, what is it? It's Flanders, Roubaix. There's three, whatever the three are in a row that goes on the weekend or the midweek. And they go over and do it. But Joe White did that one year. He had a client take him over and did the full tour, rented the bike and do all the riding. I mean, he has pictures of him in the shower and pictures of him going up, all the climbs. And then like on the following whatever day, I guess they raced Flanders on a Sunday, I'm just sitting there and ding, I get this text message and I look and it was the first year that Pogacar won. And he's just soloing, up whichever one of the hills. And it was just Joe. And there's like the people cheering and the gendarme and everything. It just looked epic. All the Flanders flags waving. Mm-hmm. I agree. That would be epic to go and do those.
Yeah. Maybe there's a service course report trip in the
Euro
not
trip.
So distant future. Yeah. Be a long one there. Yeah. Or both.
It would be awesome. It would be awesome to go and hit the various service courses as well. Although I don't know if they're all in Spain, but I would imagine some of the Dutch and Belgian teams will be up there. Get some tours for the amateurs of the service course for service course or something like that.
What was interesting is I was KS, you turned us on to that podcast with Gravenitis, whatever his name is.
Oh, I haven't listened to that yet.
Yeti mechanic. It's an excellent podcast. I really recommend it to anybody.
Gravy's awesome.
And it's, what was it called? Fausto or?
Fuerza. So Fuerza is, Miguel Crawford, who puts on the Hopper series. It's his podcast. So he actually, as we were eating burritos after the ride, he's like, did you ever listen to my interview with Gravy? And it is, I mean, I knew the guy, but I learned so much more about him, even on the non-bike riding side. It is quite fascinating. Yeah.
Well, one of the tips that I learned in there was that Volvo Cannondale service course was on the same cul-de-sac as Motorola's somewhere in Wisconsin or wherever. I thought that was interesting.
Tom Schuler. Schuler would have been the one that was doing both of those.
And the other thing is go ahead.
Oh, so they were behind the cheddar curtain, as they called it, being in Wisconsin. No, there was a bit of a juggernaut for a while there with team sports. Yeah. Tom Schuler was at the top of the game for a while with his cycling teams.
Included and a rollerblade team as well.
Yeah. And a triathlon team. Yep.
Oh yeah, that's right. He did do that. Yeah, he was crushing it for a while. Plow,
Yeah. Before Timex was a co-sponsor with Saturn, he had the Timex women's team, which I think came from a Timex triathlon team when Timex used to be the main sponsor of Ironman Hawaii. So there was a lot of connection.
Yeah.
Well, it's an excellent podcast and it paints a nice picture of the history of a lot of what we're doing nowadays. And it's, if you want a quick history lesson and not have it be too painful, it's a good one. He covers Yeti, he covers Volvo Cannondale, he drops your name, KS. It's an excellent broad brush stroke of early mountain bike racing, which is relevant to today's racing. So.
Yeah.
Well, and I thought one of the most interesting things was him and his buddies used to hitchhike with their BMX bikes up to the top of Mount Tam and then bomb down and then go up and bomb down. And it was like, it just reminded me of stuff we did when we were kids, whether, I know the three of us, we met you, Ed, when we were kind of getting into the road biking stuff. But I know when DS and I were little, growing up in Cito, it was like we had trails down through Westmont College and just off of that property. Like we had a downhill run from Mountain Drive that came basically all the way down to our house. Majority of it on these kind of like bootleggy little trails that dropped down, from below where the Hyde compound was and down to Westmont Circle Drive and Westmont Road. Or no, was that Westmont Road that was next to Circle Drive there? Anyway, it dropped all the way down to Sycamore Canyon, and it was like. And we thought it was so fun because we didn't have to pedal. We had no idea we were like downhill on our BMX bikes. And if you could get a couple runs in, we go sit at the bottom of Coyote and hitchhike, and with someone with a pickup truck came by, let us throw our stuff in. So like hearing that Gravy did that, and And the inspiration is like, well, why did you do it? He said, because, my friend's mom was sick of us hanging out at the house, and she said, you guys need to go out and do something. And I think she initially took them up there once, and then they're like, this is cool. And they just, yeah.
Yeah, that's it, right?
Yeah.
Go get out of the house.
Exactly. So,
Go outside, just do something outside. And that was when there was only 13 channels of television, I think, at that point, or maybe 12. Yeah.
you can only watch Batman after school for so many times, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Well, I was driving up early this morning at about 6:45, going up to a 7 a.m. client, and I went up Sycamore Canyon as I was cruising along, talking about Old Cito, going right by our hood, and noticed that the house that had the sycamore jump in it, which Sycamore Canyon, peeps, is the road that we grew up on. And so there was this driveway that was cut into the side of the hill. And if you would go in, it was just like this killer jump that you would hit. And then at one point, the people bought it and redid it, and the sycamore jump was gone, but it looked like it was maybe back in action. They were redoing a little landscaping. So I partially tore my left ACL there in 1985. Came back from living at the Olympic Training Center, got home, and the first thing I did was I wanted to ride up. It was actually, I shipped my mountain bike home. I had up at the Olympic Training Center. So the first day my mountain bike got there, I was like, oh man, got shipped back. And I hopped on it and went and rode up to JT's house, my best friend growing up, to hang out with him. And on the way down, I was cruising. I'm like, oh, sycamore jump. And I hadn't hit it in a long time. And I was on, 26 and hit it and looped out and landed with my left leg, bent all the way back, like knee bent. And I heard this little, and I was like, huh. And I got up and it was sore for like 3 days, and then it went away. And I never knew that I had partially torn it until I actually fully tore it all the way. That would have been that was 1985. In 2006, I tore it riding my dirt bike out at Lake Elsinore. And there were all these things I noticed over the years, like when I would walk upstairs, if I was on my toes, my left back of my knee would click a little, but I never really thought anything of it. And then once I finally fully tore it and started investigating knees, I realized, that's what that sound was. And that's why it always clicked a little bit all that time. So I ran it for, 21 years with a partial tear in it. That's not bad.
Longevity right there. Some durability.
Yeah, well, ACL, if it's only a partial, you can get away with it a long time. And also, depending on what you're doing, it was really only once we started racing downhill that I started noticing it a bit more, because if you would have your leg out and slide out in a corner and dab, if I would hyperextend it, that was when I was like, that didn't feel too good. Started putting it together. But the road bike was, mostly you'd have a hard time, getting into ACL injury. But yeah.
Ed, thanks for bringing that podcast stuff, because it is great. And then I think the other aspect of it, which goes back to when we were kids, is how those guys growing up in Marin and Fairfax, it was just like kind of a little hippie enclave, which was a lot of big parts of Santa Barbara when we grew up. And people nowadays say, oh, you grew up in Santa Barbara, it's just there's so many people and it's so busy and it's so expensive. And it's like, that's not the Santa Barbara that we grew up in. And Gravy was talking about the same thing. He's like, that's not the Fairfax that it is now is not the Fairfax that I grew up in, or even the Marin County. So it was cool to hear, that there were other places like that. I mean, I'm sure there were all over the country, but to hear that story from someone that I actually know, and get a different perspective on their life was just, it was just fun to listen to and kind of enlightening. So.
Yeah, it's excellent. He definitely rambles, and anytime he was so good, it was so funny. Like, oh wait, you didn't let me finish that story, and he would go back. He had control of the podcast, and he was such a good guest. He's like, wait, we didn't quite finish this story. And then the John Parker stuff, was so good. And he sounds a little bit like Parker, I mean, Parker would be such an amazing guest. I assume he would. Maybe Gravy's better than Parker, but you could hear little Parkerisms in the story and the early stories of Yeti and that sort of racing mentality that Yeti brought, and, talking about Tinker and Missy, and it was just excellent. It was really good.
Yeah, I can't wait. That's going to be a good one.
One more bit from it. We got to go listen to it. But the one of my main takeaways from that is I believe that Gravy to my knowledge, is the only person who quit working for John Parker, and John Parker came back to him and asked him to come back. I don't know of any other person, right? Parker fired a lot of people, or people quit, and then seemed like there was always this bad blood. But Gravy tells the story that Parker showed up on his doorstep when the Schwinn transaction was going through, when Schwinn bought Yeti, and he wanted to bring Gravy back. And I was like, wow. I mean, if anyone out there knows of anybody else who actually quit working for Yeti, as he said, he was making 4 times as much money when he went to Volvo Cannondale as he did
Right.
for Yeti. But that did that. I'm like, dang, that's a feat in and of itself. And that's it for that. Fuerza. Go listen to it. Fuerza. That podcast is from October of 22. So
wow.
It's a while back, but it's well over a couple hours. So.
Hey, a good story is always a good story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Stands the test of time.
Yeah. I'm glad you pointed it out to me, and I took me 2 rides to get through it, but it was worth it.
Yeah.
Nice.
So did we cover all the racing we wanted to talk about? You guys have anything you want to say about Cross Worlds or?
Well, Diaz was talking about the crowds, and it was funny. I kind of made this comparison in my head that the crowds at the Alula Tour were on par with the crowds at the U.S. Cyclocross Nationals, which was like there was nobody there. Yes, that's a little dig at both, but it was like, I mean, it kind of blew me away that they, I've never been to the Middle East, never been to Saudi Arabia, but they've got some big cities, and they didn't bring the racing. It seemed like all the racing was, it was out where they could get some terrain. Ed, your takeaway was crosswinds and sand blowing across the road. But it surprised me that they didn't at least have one stage like in or near a big or a middle-sized city. But obviously that's by design. There were like no crowds. It was dignitaries. And then these finishes, when you get these big, long aerial shots, like amazing terrain, it kind of reminded me some sections of the California desert, but just no crowds.
Yeah, you wonder if their business model or whatever, if they're going, oh, we're getting, TV money, and they don't, because, you can't charge necessarily for a crowd, right? Usually at a bike race, it's usually open. I mean, I guess like at the Tour or something, you can't get right in, but maybe they're just thinking if they're not getting ticket sales, they're not minded of like realizing that just having the race with a big crowd looks good. Like that's part of your marketing. You don't want to have it with nobody around.
For me, that would be the only marketing for them, because they're using these races and the teams, to promote parts of their country, promote tourism. Right.
Like Tour of Hawaii that we went and did. They were, they had a prologue right downtown in Waikiki. They were trying to highlight and showcase, which funny enough, that was back when mountain biking was on ESPN. And I remember one of the people from, I think it was one of the big team managers who knew somebody at ESPN, said that the Hawaii one, even though the course wasn't the best, the downhill one was the top rated. It got the most views. And they were talking about that. They said people just go, oh, bike racing, Hawaii, and they turn it on, Yep. So you would think, just like you said, they would want to promote some of the cooler parts of their country. But I'll admit, I didn't get to watch. I've been so busy. I've been just barely able to keep up with motocross. Is about all I've been, or Supercross is about all I've been able to keep up on. So I haven't been able to dig into too much cycling.
Well, the hardline got canceled. We talked about the hardline last week, but they
I did see that got canceled. Yeah.
They went with their practice runs, and it honestly looked like the right call. It was definitely the right decision.
What'd you think about some of those jumps, Ed, in the hardline? Like for having never seen that before.
The jumps are almost a bit too ridiculous for me,
80-footers and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's just when they're going through the trees early on, you're like, this is cool, I can relate to that. But when they hit those massive jumps, unbelievable. Asa Vermette, right? That's how you say his name.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch all the way through. As he who ended up having the fast. Yeah, he was the winner. Yeah, the fastest qualifier. It's funny. I I don't remember what it was on. Maybe it was on Pink Bike, or maybe it was actually, no, you know what? Actually, maybe it was on the actual broadcast when they were interviewing Aaron Gwynn. And I thought it was funny. He said, one, he had never jumps that big on a mountain bike before, but he was like, I don't know that I've ever even just gone that fast on a mountain bike before, because they're just ripping down that bottom open stuff. I mean, those are, some huge jumps, some of those bigger ones. It's just pretty impressive. I mean, the downhill bikes and the athletes are so amazing,
Yeah.
I had
Ace of
no
Vermette.
idea what you're talking about. I just had to search it out.
Red Bull Hardline.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about it, me and DS, on our last episode.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I thought I
that's
would
right.
round back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. I just didn't look it up, and I'm like, oh, okay. Red Bull Hard.
Yeah.
Hard. All right.
Yeah, Red Bull Hardline. So that is a bit of a bummer, but at least they got to show up and jump. Yeah, you can't, to try and jump features that big in conditions like that, there's no way. One, it was slippery, but two, it was peanut buttery. So you're not only not having the speed now to jump some of the bigger features, but then you might land and it's like super slippery. So wise, if they get a bunch of good guys injured, then that's not going to be good for repeat performances of the event. Getting all the big riders back.
So
Yeah.
it's different than the Rampage. The Rampage is a standalone Red Bull
Correct.
event, and the Hardline is as a series, I guess,
I think there's 3 of them or 2 of them. I think there's one in Scotland. There's a couple Tasmania. But it's like it's a legitimate race. Like, it's run on time, as opposed to the Rampage, which is obviously judged, but it's like technical and then massive man-made features. Technical top, yeah.
We've got a lot of weather heading to Northern California, starting Saturday night, so maybe I'll have a little time to check that out.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for the weekend riding this weekend, just because we got 1.5 inches of rain on Wednesday night after having no rain for I think a month and a half. So it should be primo tomorrow. Should be good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, if you're going for some riding, and you've been playing with some stuff, some tires, and I know we talked about a couple episodes ago, Ed. We touched on carbon handlebars. There was a guy at the Gravel and Wine whose handlebar broke, and there was a video of him riding. I had my own broken handlebar experience from Rock Cobbler 2024. And DS, I know you have some thoughts on carbon handlebars and cockpit and that, and you weren't there on that one, so.
No, I know. I don't use them. That's my rule of thumb. I just bar and stem. The last time I ran a carbon bar or stem on a road bike was the time stem that I got with my Time VRX, which I think was in 03, and just ran that stem because it was on there with aluminum bars. But yeah, not for those parts. Mountain biking I've seen now, obviously road is different than, mountain biking. And actually, I don't even really ride road, so I'm graveling, but my bike falls over, I crash, just like my amateur move out on the bluffs that one day. I just don't want to be, I don't want to be thinking that there's an unknown crack in my handlebar that's going to let go at some point. So I just won't use it. Carbon post, get some flex out of it. But as far as bar or stem, I'm not using carbon. That's a fast rule for me.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? You could just knock your bike over as you're getting ready for a ride, and it could fall over just right, or it hits a little sharp edge when it falls, or who knows. Yeah, Ed talked about this company that does these, right? This internal viewing, but isn't it just easier to not have to deal with that? I don't know. I don't know if the payoff is worth the potential for something not so good happening.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. I run a little bit heavier aluminum bar on my gravel bike anyway. Like, I run the Explorer 70 or whatever, but it's not like the SL version of the bar. Because I actually tried some SLs, and for my gravel bike, it was the ones that I had were a road bar I had initially tried, but they were definitely a little flexy. When I'd had them on the Camino, I was riding them on that, and even when I got under it, I was like, I feel like I want a firmer, a bit of a firmer feel. Although that was back on the old platform, I had a longer stem too, so I was getting some flex out of the stem as well. But I like to have just, I like to feel on dirt like a little bit more connected. I can get enough flex out of the parts to not beat me up in the tires, but I don't like my bars to feel wallowy and flexy. I like to be able to hit the line that I'm trying to hit.
Do you think any downhill racers are racing with carbon bars, or they're all on aluminum?
No, they race carbon bars. They have carbon wrapped aluminum bars. There's, different ones. I mean, the other thing is like a pro downhiller, you're getting sponsored. If you're sponsored, you just put a new set of bars on. And if you're using lock-on grips, you can switch out bars, pretty quickly. You're not gluing anything. You just slide the controls off. Usually the shifters and or the brakes, a lot of them will just open up. You don't have to slide them off anyway. So they'll switch them out. I'm not sure. I see a lot of people running aluminum though, like a Renthal fat bar. That's what I have on my, on my bike. But I don't know, since I haven't ridden carbon bars, I can't really say in the difference from what I read. It has to do with some dampening and different things like that. Different people run carbon bars if it has the right bend, but I'll just sticking with aluminum. And also I buy mine, so it's definitely more economical on the budgie, Yeah. Especially like putting a super expensive bar on and then you just like bike falls over and scrapes it the next day or something. You're just like, no.
Well, interesting. You're talking about that Zip Explore bar, which is just, it's kind of a road bar, but has a little flare to the drop, right? The shape's a little slightly different. So
Yeah.
I've done a couple of bike fits for people up here, this year actually. And my most recent one, I was working with a guy and he had these bars from a very popular brand we all know, Envy, and it's their Envy gravel in route bar. And this bar, 48 centimeters wide at the levers, 60 centimeters wide at the drops. So super wide. And I was like, well, why do you have this bar on your bike? Oh, I was researching, the old internet. Great for information, not so much for knowledge. But he said, I was also thinking of doing some bike packing. So I wanted a really wide bar that I could get a wide handlebar bag in. I'm like, okay. Have you done any bike packing?
That's not a bad reasoning,
He's never done any bike packing. But he kept
to
riding
get the
bar.
heaviest bag you could on your bars.
Yeah,
So
to really make that steering be funky.
Right,
but I noticed that, and as I got into his position, I'm like, well, dude, I was riding with him. I'm like, do you ever even put your hands in the hook of the levers there? Because your handlebar tape's all worn out on the curve of the handlebar. That was the first thing I noticed. It was discolored.
Right.
Well, no. He goes, sometimes, maybe if I'm going downhill, I'm like, do you ever ride the drops? Well, he's having to reach so far out, like couldn't even put a bend in the elbow. And then his stem was also too long.
Right.
And it was pointing up. It was also one of the only fit I've ever done where the saddle to bar drop was inverse and the bars were actually higher than the saddle. But in any case, I'll report back because he ordered a pair of the Zip Explorer 70s, I think, bars and a shorter stem. So when that comes in, he's going to get the shop's going to get him dialed in, and we're going to keep tweaking, and we'll see how much better it is. But that was and I looked, and that was you were talking about the cost. That's on the Envy website. That's a $400 handlebar.
Right.
Which, that's a that's.
And what do the Explorer 70s retail? Like $80 or something, maybe
79 for the SL and 59 for the standard. Yeah,
the standard.
So just something to think about. But I was just, and I do these fits for comfort. It's like you're going to be faster if you're comfortable, and he's actually in the Unbound 200, so that's his big goal.
Oh, nice.
for this year. So we'll see how it is, and then just give myself a little pat. I did change his cleat position up quite a bit, and he got his first podium ever that next weekend at a little bike race. So I'm like, hey,
nice.
Yeah, so for in his mid 50s, never been on a podium. I'm like, far out. So
there you go.
Make some tweaks. Yeah,
that's cool.
Helping him out.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, when I got my Arid last year, whatever March. As you guys remember, I tried experimenting with some ultra super wide bars. I I have a QBP account, so I was ordering up, having some
Condor.
fun in there. Yeah, the condors, as I was calling them, the wingspan. But I got a set of salsa cow chippers, and I think they were 52 or something at the levers, and then also a pair of, I think they were Richies. But the interesting thing with both of those is they were, I always get the terminology wrong. They were flared where the drop is still parallel to the top tube. It just basically, it's like as if you just grabbed the bars and spread them out. They just tilt straight out. And I got on those and rode them, and I was thinking, oh, this is going to be great. They're going to be even wider. But it was weird. I felt like it was worse. It was like it pinched they made my shoulders sore. And so I ended up going back to my 46 centimeter Explorer 70s. And those have and I won't have the term right. I don't think that's called, I think tapers where it's kicked out. Is it flared? Or maybe flared is where it's kicked out. And I don't know, I get them mixed up. But anyway, if you look down at the drop as it comes back, it curves out. So that when your hand is on it, there you go. Those are the wide ones.
That's it.
So interestingly enough, is on those super wide bars, because my hands were still parallel to the top tube, it was like they were wide, but it pinched my shoulders together up top. Whereas the Explorers are 46, they're narrower, but they actually, because of the shape of the drop, it helps me kick my elbows out. And that's really the feel of what I was going for, based on the curve of the hand. So I put those, ever since I put those 46 Explorer 70s back on, they're just money. That's my handlebar. Every bike I have that's got a drop bar on it has those bars that I ride. Yeah, they're great. Nice pull up on the photo there, Rico.
Yeah, that was it. I knew you had sent it to us. So, yeah.
The wide dogs, look at those.
The eagle, yeah. I think you dubbed that one the Condor, just
the
because
Condor,
they have such a wingspan.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Cow chippers are on sale for $27.50 if you want a pair.
Exactly. There might be a reason for that. I still have a pair. I haven't sold them yet. So I like it when the drop curves out. That was way better. And then also the other thing I like about that too is I found with the ones where it kicks out from the lever down to the drop as opposed to the drop coming out. It messed with the actual lever. Like on mine, I like traditional. I don't turn mine in. So mine are straight, and they're straight and level and anything. On the other bars, they were like kicked in, and it was just like weird to hit the brakes. They weren't like pulling back. My finger would get in between the lever. It was just like, it was not happening. So my Explorer 70s are my top bar until something comes along and knocks them off. So I'll be interested to see how he likes them. I like them too. They're a short reach, but the tops angle back a little bit. So from the bend of the top of the bars, it goes forward to the lever. It's still pretty long. So you have a lot of room to put your hands. I have big hands, but yet because the tops kick back, your overall reach from the stem isn't really long. Because, on my gravel bike, I like that shorter reach. Yeah. So I'll be interested to hear the follow-up on that.
Yeah, I think I went to those from your suggestion. I did the Explorer 80. It's got a little bit different reach. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a great handlebar. So aluminum. Yeah. I've only had one of those break. I think I spoke about it last time when the airline bent it, and when I went to bend it back, it broke right at the lever clamp. But that was an airline thing. But it wasn't a $400 handlebar, so it wasn't that that painful. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my Aired's been coming around since you hooked me up with the 80 mil stem. Tuned it up a little bit, working on position on that. Yeah.
And what about you, Ed? You still loving the XC bike?
Yeah, I didn't cut the bars. They're 780, so they're super wide. Got a little bit longer stem. I think I have a 85 stem. It came with stock with like a 70 or something really short.
Oh yeah.
But I'm the opposite of you guys. I dig carbon bars. I think the dampening is good. I like the hand positions, like on my road bikes or gravel bikes, I like the flat, fat bars.
Right.
And I just go stock with whatever comes, and just deal with it. I work a lot on my seat position. My handlebars are what they are.
Right.
Not always too wild about what Canyon has cooking up on their gravel bikes for bars, but On my mountain bike, my fitter said, "Oh my God, you need this stem and this. You got to change all this." And I just said, "You know what? This bike was designed this way, and I just ride it." So,
Yeah. Yeah. You got what you said, just a longer stem on that, right? That was the one change.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Longer
I got
reach.
as
And
long
then,
as I could get,
yeah.
and the next set comes, they ship a little wider, and I
Yeah.
never trimmed them.
Yeah.
I do hit a lot of stuff with my hands, and I miss the old days of when we rode mountain bike bars that were like this,
24 inches or something.
you know.
If you got back on a mountain bike with bars that narrow, you would just laugh. It just feels like you're like pinballing
Yeah,
around.
definitely not arrow. This year at Leadville, we're going to see all kinds of manipulations of where people move their brake levers and put their hands. I know you're not allowed to have any kind of bar ends inside your brake lever. That's one part of the rule for
Right.
Leadville. But I think you're going to see the brake levers moving, and you're going to see some weirdness as people try and get their hands narrow. Because my 780 hands are definitely not arrow.
Yeah,
But
no, that's not arrow out there.
yeah,
Nobody?
I just figured you would just wrap some tape right next to the stem and just hold on and just frickin' arrow it up. I mean, that's about as good as you're going to get. I don't know. I guess we will see. Maybe that will be the fun part of them outlawing the drops. What were you going to say, Chaos?
Have either of you seen anything where someone is splicing in like a second brake lever into the hydraulic line, right? Remember the
I've seen that before.
cyclocross?
Yeah.
I've seen them with
Yeah, the
cables,
little levers up top.
but little cheater, like back in the day when you had your little cheater brake levers on your 10 speed, right? But I remember seeing cable actuated ones of those, but I haven't seen anything hydraulic, and I don't know the physics of that, whether you can splice in another lever with pistons in that. But
Just
if you
have
could
like one, so you're right there. Like if you
just a
just
couple
needed to.
little, like a little
Yeah.
stubby little lever that's right there, at the stem. Like I have these little
Yeah.
remote shifters I put on my handlebars with electronic shifting. It's super easy, that are right close from when I'm riding on the tops, and also have them on the levers. And it's like, yeah, I didn't know if anybody was making anything like that, or need for it.
I think it's coming. I've seen
Yeah.
some photos.
Yeah, I would imagine there's some type of
And then we're talking about handlebars, and I've seen this argument for these super wide gravel bars, that it's like, oh, you have stability because you're wide like a mountain bike, but your hands are so much lower than they are on a mountain bike, right? A wide mountain bike handlebar, you're up at the stem level where they are, and then you notice that you get that pinch, but you thought that was more because of the angle of the drop, but it seems like it's
the
less
width.
stable.
Yeah.
I see people, they're reaching and their arms are completely straight, and it's so far away that they can't do anything.
Well, I mean, a mountain bike, first of all, your wrists or your hands are 90 degrees opposite. I mean, on drops, you're still here, road bike, and on a mountain bike, you're here. So that's, that's the first change. That's the thing, is if on a road bike, if your elbows are down, but your hands are wide, it's like pinching you together. Yeah, that's why I wasn't feeling it. But also I really realized that I really don't need a wider bar on my bike to go faster. Like I'm kind of at the limit of speed that I go through technical stuff on my gravel bike anyway on that bar, and it just feels more natural to me. I mean, if I have a wide bar, I don't think it would make me any better, even if it didn't pinch me. I feel like almost like on the drop bars, it's a little bit more maneuverable when it's not so wide, but again, the key is my elbows are kicked out, and that's really where you get the width of handling out of your shoulders and and down to your elbows rather than being there. So I think that that's really one area, handlebars, that they could make a lot of improvement in. Maybe not on the high end racing side, but just for your average rider, your average 1 or 2 time per week enthusiast that's maybe middle aged and up, they're running mostly very close to the same handlebars designed for people who ride a whole bunch. I just think there's got to be maybe some more comfortable hand positions. The same, I don't know if you see that KS fitting, but like a lot of the same problems, levers have adjustability and stuff, but you'll get to this point where you're trying to bring the levers up higher for comfort, but then when they go on the drops, they can't even reach the brake lever. Like you can't do both at once. And then also, the way that drops are designed, if you're more arrow and your hands, your forearms are coming down at a little more of an angle, the bar is different than if you're over top of it and your arms, forearms are kind of more coming straight down at the drops, which is a more recreational cyclist position once they get there. And your hand ends up coming straight down on the drop, but then you're trying to get your wrist bent to, to get at the brake lever, as opposed to if you're in a more aerodynamic position and you're coming straight at it. So I still think that that's an area that they could make strides. I mean, it's not that hard to bend, metal.
True.
I would think that there could be, yeah.
And I think a lot of people have to lack of a better term, but drank the Kool-Aid that aero is so important. Like, I think for 98 or 99% of us, it doesn't matter that much, but you're led to, by all of the marketing, or you hear some interview of someone, or you're watching it, I mean, yeah, a little, but not really. Like, I truly feel that most people are going to be faster if they're comfortable on the bike rather than,
right.
They're quote more aerodynamic. It's like, unless you're a solo, figure out how to ride in a group, figure out how to get a better draft, play one of those tricks, how to read where the wind is coming from and learn how to ride. So.
Yeah. For me, I think being 6'3" arrow is a little important.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not that it isn't important.
It's not my bike. Yeah. It's me. My body is the problem.
Well, correct.
Well, that's the key. And there's a distinction, right? Because people get sold on the aerodynamic benefits of equipment, and then obviously like you're fit. But I agree with you, KS. It's like, because I've fit so many people that came in with like a racer's fit, but then their back ties up after 20 miles. So obviously you're not fast if you're back at home on the couch. It doesn't matter however you are if you can't ride. But that's not to say that just like riding upright if you're 6'3" is good also, having to find some balance. But I do believe that especially a lot of the aerodynamic technology that people are sold on for buying those bikes, I mean, it doesn't, we've touched on that, I think, before, but it mostly doesn't matter for the majority of the people buying that stuff. There was that one podcast, and I can't remember who it was. It was talking about aerodynamics, and they were saying that he was essentially saying the same thing, and that the difference between body position is like the difference between, in terms of aerodynamics, it's like 20%. It's the difference between being on a full time trial bike or an XCO bike, is like the difference that your body makes, and think about the difference of that, right? If you're trying to be aero, but you're out on a mountain bike. So it's definitely your body makes the biggest difference.
So I got one for you guys.
Yeah.
When you see somebody and you're out riding who desperately needs to see a fitter, do you ever have the nerve to tell them?
Well, I used to hand them cards, but then I ran out of cards. I did that. I would actually pull up, I'd ride behind people, and I've come up to a stop sign and be like, hey, and introduce myself and say, I see this and this, and, this is twisted and this is over the side, and I really think I could help you out, and hand them a card. I think maybe for all the times I did that, I maybe got one or two people maybe that, that contact me back. It's a little bit of like I don't know, a confidence move. You're just riding along and you're like, hey. But yeah.
Yeah, I have, if it's someone more that I know or someone I've been riding with, I would say, Ed, that I would do that. But, also I've been, accused of, quote, mansplaining, which is, you all have heard that term. But no, if someone is receptive to it, I think it more would start kind of a conversation. Hey, are you comfortable? Hey, this, versus just boom, straight at it. Because I do feel that, over 4.5 decades, I definitely have an eye for some of these things, and I can pick them out. Just like the last two fits that I did, both people had their cleats in the back position on the insert all the way back.
Right.
Except one of them, actually, the cleats weren't even. They weren't equal, which was causing another
very
problem.
Common.
But I was like, wow, I said, just, and I just noticed that just out riding. It's like, you look at someone that looks like they're pedaling on the arch of their foot, or you can, you, like you said, DS, you can see a high shoulder or a knee out or a twist or somewhere. And oftentimes it's, yes, you can play with position, but at the same time, you also have to be willing to put in the work. Like, And everyone's, oh, can I just get my fit and I'll be better? It's like, well, no, you also need to really start doing some mobility work and
Right.
work on your flexibility. And your core is probably pretty weak, and you're not going to fix that in 6 weeks. Like, you need to really go
Right.
for it, especially if you haven't been doing it. So it's a combo, and people don't want to hear it because the American way is, you abuse your body for 35 or 40 years, and then you want a pill to fix you in 6 weeks, and it just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you bring up cleat position. That was one of the things that I learned in fitting, is that cleats are now somebody's shoes is the first thing I look at. Not necessarily to adjust them right off the bat, but just to look and see if they're equal. Because I remember working on this guy's fit. This was, when I had first had my studio down on Coda Street the first couple of years, and I'm just working on, like, God, you got this twist in your hips, and I'm trying to like do stuff with the nose of his saddle and everything like that. And then he takes a break at one point, and I'm adjusting, and he's sitting, on the chair, and I go, hey, let me check out your shoes. And I look, and the one cleat is just like forward, and the other one is like 2/3 of the way back. And I'm just like, I had to go back, had to start over, do his cleats, and then start looking at the fit again. So that's one of the things I actually always look at first. The last fit I did, the guy had replaced his cleats, and they were pretty close, but one was a little bit off. So yeah, that's one of the first things to look at. And cleats will slide, or some people just put them on and don't even realize.
Well, then I asked, so who put your cleats on? Oh, the shop did, or oh, I did,
Oh yeah.
or yeah, or I was, I read something on the internet that said I should move my cleats all the way back. It's like, yeah, you might want to ask somebody about that. And it's huge. And also it's cleat wear, right? There's a nice balance from when you get your cleats all broken in, and they're, especially like on an SPD type pedal, and they get polished, and they're easy to clip in and to clip out. But at a certain point, the cleats can wear out, and you can start to get a little bit of rocking. I remember, you guys remember a guy named Trent Klasna, one of the premier road racers in the U.S. And I remember one year he didn't change his cleats like from training camp until like July or August, and then he changed his cleat and he had knee problems. Like,
yeah,
he let them wear out so much. So there's our little PSA. Like, look at your cleats and look not where you walk on them, but where they engage the pedal,
contact
and
the pedal,
where those contact points are, because they do wear out. And patterns also wear into your cleats, and you can see if it's wearing more on one side or another, that you may want to adjust the angle of that cleat a little bit so that it's sitting square. But that's something that's important to do. Look at those cleats and replace them. It's it's just like replacing your chain or your cassette, and keep them clean. Every once in a while, take a little soapy brush, hot water, and scrub the bottom of your shoe, and you can take a look at it, blow it off with some compressed air, because you got 3 contact points on the bike, and one of them is fixed, and that's your feet. Their feet, you're always clipped into the pedals. You move your hands around, you get up and out of the saddle, you shift around, so it's very important.
Yeah. Here.
So I wore a leg brace when I was a baby, so they were afraid that I was going to have like club foot or something. So my left and right cleats are completely different,
Yeah.
So they just are. So you guys might be appalled if you looked at my cleats.
Well, I
also have 2 different size feet.
But you put the work in to understand that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I have time to do this, but I actually, and then DSR, you would say something, but I actually took a point where I went in with calipers and measured exactly my cleats, how they fit in the tunnel on the shoe, like an SPD cleat, left, right, fore and back, gaps, everything. And found this ideal position. And, I always say when I'm fitting somebody, I said, the ideal position is one that you don't notice, because you don't feel anything wacky, and you just feel your legs and your ride. And so, yeah, that's not to say that cleats always have to be equal, because all of our bodies are a little different,
right.
and life has a way of making those bad habits get worse over the years.
Well, I
put bad habits in quotes.
Bad habits. Back when we were sponsored by Time, and it's important to let you know we were sponsoring and got tons of shoes and pedals. The Time were the easiest to reset, because there was no angular adjustment on the cleat, and it was just a number front and back. But to get it ultimately done perfectly the first time, I actually drilled a hole through the sole of the shoe, and then put a little finishing nail up there to feel the point exactly where it was on the junction of the foot and the first knuckle. And my left foot, the toe was whatever, I guess a little bit shorter. So my left foot would usually be a little further back on the pedal. I ran it for years and years and years, but then I got to a certain point where I don't know if my PSN, position sensitivity neurosis, was too much, or I was like, maybe I just need to set this shit equal. And and I just put my cleats symmetrical. So I have for a long time, even though I have various picks and pulls and things like that, I figured out that actually for me, it's the easiest to put my cleats equal of all my issues and then work around it from there. So, there's just always different ways to skin it. But the moral of the story or whatever, the nugget is that lots of trial and error. You just didn't one day go, I'm just going to do that because of this and stuck it there. We've tried so many different eye iterations and shoes and Time and Shimano and, Speed Play and Crank Brothers and everything to work them all around and have that experience.
Yeah.
Find out what really works.
All right. Yeah. I just found this document in July of 24. I recorded the cleat position and I have inboard edge of cleat to rubber lug in the shoe tunnel, the small shell, because my shoes, I've got measurements.
Yeah.
I was using digital calipers, right? And ranges when I couldn't exactly tell, but yeah, I 17.98 millimeters from this edge to that. And yeah,
right.
It was, one of those things, but once you get it dialed, it's amazing how good
That's
you can
the
feel.
key. Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered fitting, and anybody have an amateur?
Maybe you should bring this one up, Ed, because you're the one that alerted us to the story.
Well, Escape Collective broke the news that one of the worst USPS postal doctors was a Spanish doctor who's currently serving a sentence, has been working with Mark Solaire's dad, who is also an athlete of some kind. He's a triathlete, runner, so forth.
Mature athlete.
Yeah, amateur athlete.
Yeah.
So I was kind of pointing this story out. It's been, it's pretty well specced out. It goes back to 2022. And Mark Solaire has made a little bit of a comment about it, saying he doesn't have any influence from his dad and wasn't aware of that. But this doctor, is definitely not supposed to be working with any athletes. So,
right. Yeah, it was banned, right? For however many years they got a ban from working with any cycling athletes. Yeah, and when you sent it over and we were talking about it, I was kind of dumbfounded. I guess if it's one thing if Mark Soler has zero contact with his dad or they're estranged or whatever, but it doesn't sound like that's the case, right? Why if you're his dad would you do that? Like, what's the point? That this guy's so great. He's banned, why your son is a current racer in the world tour. Why would you even consider doing that? What are you getting out of it? If you're in fact an amateur triathlete, as his dad says, and that's why it's doing, then what does it frickin' matter? You're not getting paid. Like, why would you even open up your son to that scrutiny? That's my amateur. Like, amateur, why would you even do that? We're talking about it now, right? Mm-hmm. With all the history of the sport, I just don't, just such a lame move. I don't know. What do you guys?
I agree.
I agree. Yep.
Yeah. I just don't get it. And I guess amateur, like what? No, that's it. You got to hear a good one. And I guess the only reason that we could come up with, as we were talking about beforehand, is the only reason he would do it is that he doesn't think there's anything wrong with it. Obviously, like that it's not under scrutiny, that you don't think there's anything wrong with the doctor being banned. So then you maybe think, oh, really? He shouldn't have been banned. Otherwise, why would you work with him? I just like the whole thing just seems ridiculous to me. It's kind of like stuck in that old world thinking or something, just like, yeah, that's the full amateur move. Why subject your son to that? Why even bring this into the conversation? Amateur.
That probably brings up a conversation for another podcast, which is, right? We don't think they did anything wrong, or we don't think we did anything wrong.
Yeah, but, that'll be for a wider conversation. But what were you going to say, Ed?
Yeah.
Well, I think we should just hold people to a higher standard. I think it's important. I think in this day and age, especially if you follow some stuff in the news, I think it's important to hold a higher standard of ethics and that will be helpful, and that we should never let that slip. And if you don't know anything about doping and cycling, I'm happy to tell you the stories, and don't wait for the latest Lance Armstrong movie from Hollywood to explain it to you. I mean,
Yeah.
we all three lived it, and we went through the cycles and lived it and consumed it and witnessed it. So it shouldn't be forgotten. And so I think it's a great amateur. And on that, I think we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. All right.
So that's episode 18. Please send us your comments, your questions, things that you'd like to see us talk about on here, guests you'd like to see us have. And thank you for listening.
Super challenge.
Super challenge.